Hey everybody, it's your girl Charlotte Van Horn, Black Expats in Panama, by way of little old Glassboro, New Jersey, and you know it right here on blacksetradio.com. Doggone it. How y'all doing? Listen, whole lot going on. Joe Biden dropped out the race. Kamala Harris is on the ticket. So there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of questions. And so you know how we do. When you got questions, we find answers. So with that, I ain't got time to sit and chit chat and smile with y'all today because I got the woman with the answers on the line with me. I have Miss Charlene Evans Spence, and she hails as a Black expat in Panama. I'm going to let her tell you about herself, and we're going to get into information about voting abroad because you know a lot of us is out of pocket at this time. So, Charlene, hey, lady.
Hello, how are you? How's everybody?
All
Um,
right.
what can I say? After an introduction like that, oh boy, no pressure, right? But
Pressure.
I'm a married lady here in Boquete, Panama,
Mhm.
enjoying my retirement along with my husband. Uh, but like most of us, we still love our country. We love America and we love the USA. And we are involved. We have family there, even though sometimes I try to convince them to come here. But but uh, we want to be a part of what's going on in the USA. And so when I first came here, I found, you look for your tribe when you first move abroad. And I found my tribe in a group called Cherokee Progressives. The Cherokee Progressives is a group that like-minded people like me. And once I got involved in that and talking to so many people, expats, we're varied. We come from so many different backgrounds. We do so many different things, so many talented and capable people, and you start to understand that we have a country in the US that is worth being involved in. So, little by little, I got involved in helping people to register to vote, helping expats, helping people who live abroad to vote. There's always a lot going on, always a lot of information out there. Sometimes that information is old or has changed. And it's important that people know what is right for them right now. So that's what I try to do. And I'm so grateful to Charlotte for helping me getting this message out.
I'm so grateful to you because I can't get no message out that I do not have expertise in. So we need each other in order to be able to make things happen. You said a couple of things, and the one thing that you said was that, and a lot of people don't come on the show and automatically say we love our country. And I appreciate that you said that because I think that ultimately I see the US as the family that you were born into, as opposed to like some of the family that I was born into on a more, nuclear level. They're not necessarily my people. You know what I'm saying? They are not necessarily people that I would be friends with if we didn't just happen to have the same parents. Okay. Nevertheless, they are my family.
Right.
They are my family. And that's kind of how I feel about the United States. Even as dysfunctional as it is, you don't want to see nothing bad happen because you still love it. It's your
Right.
dysfunctional people. It's your
Right.
dysfunctional country. And at this time, we're in a better position because we're not dead in it. And I think that's the best position to be in right now.
Mhm.
However, we do care about what's going on. So thank
Right.
you for putting that out there, first of all. And let me ask you this. before you made this move as an expat, was voter registration or any that kind of civic duty, was that something you like to do in the US? Or is that something you just, gravitated towards here as you sought out your tribe?
Well, I was very involved in gender equity issues
Okay.
before.
Okay.
And that was because I worked in an industry that was predominantly male dominated. And, it was very important to me to get women involved and to make sure that women were treated fairly in that arena. Once we passed, what was it, 2016, uh,
Okay.
took to the streets.
Yes.
I
I
took to
got
the
you.
streets.
I got you.
The Women's March, I got really involved in that. And they had what they call huddle groups
Mhm.
across the country after the march. And I was admin for one of the huddle groups. And that was just, it was a very trying time because, we saw things going on that were just unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
And we were doing things like we'd have meetings and send you're fired postcards to the White House and things like that,
Mhm.
everything we could do. And there were marches. I had never ever marched and held a sign before, and neither had my husband. And it was really kind of funny because the first march I went to, he took me there and dropped me off. but but as things happened the way they did, soon he was marching with me and he was holding signs, and that was just great. So
Awesome.
when we moved down here, and I moved from Florida, so that you can make of that what you will. When we moved down here, little by little, I got involved and found ways to still try to get the message out and be effective. Yeah.
So I'll tell you what the loudest thing that you just said there was leading by example. Leading by example, meaning that your husband wasn't engaged initially, but and I'm sure that by you going out there and you being involved and you sharing the information with him, it changed that. So I was just curious. That moment for me was Barack Obama in the
Uh,
Healthcare Act. That's when I became, much more. Barack Obama made politics real for me. So
okay.
when I see people who are like just out of pocket, they're not paying attention. I prefer that we do. And I think that nowadays we have so much available to us, information available to us. And even if you don't watch the news, even if you don't read the paper, if that's still such a thing, stuff comes across your timeline,
Right.
on social media. So it's like always ways for you to know things and to get involved. However, I do have a certain level of patience for them because I know how oblivious I was to
Uh,
politics
uh,
and things of the world,
mhm.
at one time. I mean, at some points in your life, you're just preoccupied. I think we spoke briefly about it the other day. Listen, if you're hungry,
Right.
baby,
Right.
you
That's
probably
very
is
true.
not caring
Yeah.
about what's happening
Yeah.
outside your belly rumbling. You know what I'm saying? And so things like that. So, people are us being able to take people in and show them different issues. I'm sure your husband already knew about things
Right.
that were happening, but when you see somebody that's personally involved that you care about and you trust, it takes on another meaning.
Right.
So I'm gonna say that, and then I'm gonna just get into some questions for you about voting abroad, and have you let us know what organizations or what groups you actually are a part of. But the thing about it is that sharing something on your social media page, if that's all you can do,
If
find
that's all you can
a
do.
finding a good resource. Let's talk about that a lot during this election season. finding credible information. Every year, it's gotten more and more harder to discern between what's real and what's not. And so you got to find credible sources and really kind of rely on them. Or if you see something that looks like it's too crazy, you do a little research, do a little research. Right. So that's what I have to say about that. So let me throw it back to you and tell me what organizations or groups you are working with, and then we'll go ahead and get into some questions about voting abroad.
Okay. Well, my favorite site for getting people involved in voting is a site, votefromabroad.org. Mm-hmm. Now, I know Charlotte told me that she's going to put some information in the comment section for notes and all, so you'll be able to write this down. Mm-hmm. But votefromabroad.org is a wonderful place to start, because their splash page, when it comes up, it says, you want to vote and we want to help you.
Okay,
and that's really straightforward.
Easy peasy.
And yes, and as we talk, you'll understand more and more all the different stipulations and things for different states, and sometimes it's even counties or parish or whatever. And they drill down on that so that when you go in and tell them what state you're voting from, and we'll talk more about that because that's usually a question for people.
Okay.
They then tell you, okay, you're going to need this, you're going to need that. And what you're going to need is usually the zip code of your voting address, and that's the last place you were registered, the last place you voted. Mm-hmm. I vote now from the precinct that I lived in Daytona Beach for 30 years. We sold the house, but that's the address I use and that is what you're supposed to do. It's not like, underground or anything. And so you use that zip code, you use your current non-US address. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Boquete, where I live, we don't have addresses. Right. Our address is third house past the yellow, and really that's our address. My address is Volcancito Road, diagonal to the Catholic Church. That's my address.
Is that is a real thing. First of all, let me just back up and make sure everybody understood what you just said. I think that what you just said is something that people need to understand prior to becoming an expat anywhere, is that you are allowed to keep your previous address for voting purposes.
Right.
So you say that you can keep that previous address, but you have to include your current international address.
Right.
Which, even though, I don't live in a rural situation at all, the address, I don't know my address by heart. My granddaughter asked me, Nana, what's your address? I said, you gonna laugh at me. Because I don't know. It's very different. It's not as structured as a U.S. address. So people understanding that and looking into that before they make a move. Because what I'm wondering is that, say if you move, does it go by the longest U.S. address that you've held, or is it strictly by the last?
The last one. Wherever you were and probably are still currently registered.
Right.
Okay. And and the thing about it is, like I said, we don't have addresses here. Now, like most people who live in a rural type of situation like we do, we have a forwarding address that we use for mail that comes to us and then is forwarded. That's a different thing.
Yes.
And a lot of people sometimes get confused and they have their absentee ballot sent to that forwarding address, and it gets forwarded to them. and they fill it out, and then their question is, well, how do I get it back to the states?
Right.
And that gets a little jumbled because some people say, well, you have to take it to the embassy. Other people say, give it to a friend and let them mail it for you in the States. Would you believe that if you do that, in some states, that's considered ballot stuff?
You got to be careful. You got to
You
know.
got to be careful. And the thing about it is, since we have this technology, and that ballot can, in most cases, be emailed to you, I have heard that there's some states that won't, but I haven't really run into that. Or, it's kind of third-party information. They will email you a ballot, and typically they want you
Really?
to, yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. They'll email you a ballot. It comes in your email. As soon as I tell them that my current address is in Panama, they say, oh, well, we'll email your ballot. And they do. They email me a sample ballot, and this is Florida. And uh, and then I can mark that ballot. Either I can mark it used on the computer, I can print it out and mark it. And then typically they want you to fax it back, which can be a problem for some people. But talk to your friends. There are lots of applications where you can scan the ballot in and then fax it off of your computer, or you can go to someplace like mailboxes or whatever and fax it back that way.
Yeah, I've actually done that.
And typically what they want to see, or what you'll need when you go to register or to request a absentee ballot online, is that zip code we mentioned before, the zip code of your address where you're registered before, your current non-US address, your social security number, and your state ID, like your driver's license.
Okay, and you're saying that when you go to register to vote abroad,
right?
and are you saying that, like, where would you go to register to vote abroad? Did you say that already? Was this the embassy?
Yes, if you went to votefromabroad.org,
got you.
the first thing you're going to see is a big splash screen that says, you're here to vote, we're here to help you. And then they ask you to choose your state.
Wow.
And once you choose your state, there's just a drop-down list. Once you choose your state, then it will tell you exactly what you're going to need to have on hand as you go through the process. And it tells you that it'll take 5 to 7 minutes. And I just had a guy today that he asked me, I need help. I want to get registered. I sent him there. He came back and told me, thank you. It took me 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay. That's great. Oh,
yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
Yes. That is really my favorite site to go to, because not only that, and I'm going to kind of jump ahead here, because one of the things I want to talk about is deadlines and information. That same site, when you choose your state, they'll have 2 or 3 drop-down boxes there where you can choose to register or request a absentee ballot. You can choose to see what your deadlines are for registering, for voting, for all those things. You can see what let's see, there was one other thing. You can see your it just says voter information.
That's
now
important.
Voter information does not mean information about the candidates or the issues. And if I could sneak in a recommendation here, I would recommend League of Women Voters for that.
Okay.
If you want to know about a candidate, if you want to know about an issue, because you
Okay.
know how they word the issues sometimes.
Mhm.
You know, yes or no, and you don't know which one means what.
Yes.
But anyway, League of Women Voters is good for that. But when you go to votefromabroad.org, they have all this information for you about when the deadlines are and that kind of thing. Now,
That's
I
that's
don't,
good.
yeah,
And that's going to
I
be
don't
based
know.
on that's going to be based on your country. That's going to
That's
be
going to
based
be
on your country as in the
your
US,
state, your state,
your state.
your
Got
state. When you go to votefromabroad.org, the assumption is you're an American citizen living somewhere
got you.
other than the
Got
US.
you.
And they will ask you what state or territory. You know, if you're Puerto Rico or U.S. Virgin Island, they have all of that information. I
Okay.
I cannot express how well done I think that site is. Easy to use.
It sounds it, and I really wasn't aware of it. So I
Right.
appreciate you sharing that with us because that right there is going to be a big help getting people started.
Right.
Because sometimes people just don't know where to start. And
They don't know where to start.
the other thing that you said was that I think ought to be a trigger and a bell for some people is that you're probably still registered where you came from.
Right. Right. Right.
So that right there is a help because I'm
Right.
sure that some people don't know, am I still registered? I mean, I've been in Panama a couple of years. Maybe they may have missed the last election, or the last midterm or the last, am I
Right.
still eligible? Well, if you're still registered there, then that can kind of help you to hone in on some things that you need to do as well. Seeing what your status is and everything, right? Am I right about that?
Right. And that is so important. I'm so glad you mentioned that because like I guess I'm kind of paranoid being from Florida and all that's going
I
on there.
understand.
I check to make I must check 2 or 3 times a year to make sure I'm registered, checking my voter status because they find a reason to what do they call it when they go through the
Take you
voter
off the
rolls? They purge.
purge,
They purge.
purge.
And they will purge people based on, I've heard horror stories. I've
Yes.
heard horror stories about people like in Florida, you have to register as a Democrat, Republican, Independent. And I've heard of people being registered as things they didn't register for, you know.
I know someone personally.
Okay,
Happened
okay.
to. Yes,
And
absolutely.
so that's another good thing to do to go and check on your status. And another thing that is really important, once you submit your ballot
Mhm.
through this organization, through your state, there is a way for you to go in then and check. And it's just, click here to make sure your ballot was received. And I think that's very important because you want to know that your ballot was received, but you also want them to know that you want to know that your ballot was received.
Exactly. And you can
Yeah.
do all that as a result of going through
Yes.
votefromabroad.org.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. That
Yes,
I
ma'am.
see why it's your favorite.
Yeah, it is my favorite. Now, I also have to quickly put in a plug for democratsabroad.org.
Okay.
I have to put in a plug for that because I'm the secretary. So democratsabroad.org. I'm the secretary for the Panama division.
Okay.
And democratsabroad.org is it's another amazing organization. There, if that is where you identify or would like to identify, they put out so much information. You talk about information from credible sources,
Yes.
and they they are actually Democrats abroad is actually seen as like a state when they go to the Democratic National Convention.
Mm-hmm.
They can stand up and say, we nominate, let's say, Kamala Harris. Yes, just like
Wow.
other states do. So it's important. We had a primary election through them and everything. So if that is your bent, if that's I think that people should vote the way they feel. If they're independents, if they're progressives, if they're whatever, I just think they should vote. And Democrats, if you're a Democrat and you feel comfortable with that tribe, democratsabroad.org is a great organization.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So then the other one that you are associated with is the Cherokee Progressives, and that is a
Yes.
Facebook group, right?
That's a Facebook group. That is a fun group. That's a
Yes.
group progressives, new
Yeah.
ideas, new ways of doing things. Uh, I'm just an admin on that Facebook page, which means that I try to help facilitate their goals and their missions and things. And we typically have a face-to-face. We try to do it once a month.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's always so much fun. I have never gone to one of those meetings and walked away without
I
new
have.
information or good information or new friends. It's just it is a good time. I don't have to tell you, you work with expats all the time.
Yes. Yes.
Expats are amazing. I mean, a lot of times you're talking to people who have sold everything they owned
Yes.
and moved to a different country.
Mhm.
And these people are people who look for solutions. They look forward, not back. They,
Yeah,
and it's just
exactly.
a great group. It's a great group.
It is, and and the thing that I like to say about being a Black expat here in Panama is that the things that you learn about, like what you just said about people, you learn about their story.
Right,
What we have in
right,
common is our journey
right,
from the United States to wherever you are. And what you find a whole lot less of here than you do in the United States or in the Black expats community is, in my case, is I know so and so. I am okay. My friend is cousins to Michelle Obama's niece, who is friends with.
right.
Don't nobody care, boo. Okay,
Nobody
don't
cares.
nobody care. What's your
Right,
story? How did you get here? Those
right,
are the things that are more interesting. I find that we talk a lot less. I mean, honestly, when you talk about whether we're choosing a future or whether we're choosing the past, and you say, people talking about being progressive and the ideas and moving forward, that is really kind of that's the goal point.
right,
So
right,
that's where we are. We are
right,
being progressive in our lives and don't spend a whole lot of time talking about the accolades that we achieved in the United States.
right.
Because
That's true.
how did you get here, girl?
Right. That's very true. And that's what I found with this group is it's a lot of people who, like we all, like you said earlier, that at one time you were kind of distracted, you didn't get into politics. We've all been there because we were locked into achievement, we were locked into acquisition. We wanted this, we wanted that, we wanted the other. Now I find that people who tend to be expats are more interested in ideas and ideals and and what's going on with them and their family and their friends, helping one another. It's always the talk here in Boquete about what a close-knit community is and people help one another. And that's because we're not living in that, as you mentioned before, we're not living in, most of us, you're always going to have. Yeah. But most of us are not living in that fear of scarcity or that fear of what was that they always say in the commercials? Be the first one on your block to have such and
The
such.
Jones, like
The Joneses,
keep it up
right?
with the Joneses.
Right, right. So it's a different kind of life for us, and a different kind of life about appreciating the sunrise and things like
Yes,
that. If you appreciate the sunrise, you're concerned about climate control. You know what I mean?
right,
So yeah,
right.
yeah.
So let me just say this though. As a person who is connected to expats all over the world, expats who choose to go to different places have different characteristics.
Ah,
And you're talking about Panama expats. And Panama, the expat situation in Panama has changed quite a bit, with the digital nomad situation,
right, right.
people realizing that they can work from abroad and things like that. We have, and the very good schools that we have here in
Mm, mm.
Panama City, I know for sure, we're starting to attract a much younger
Yes,
set.
yes.
However, the difference between, say, an average expat from Panama and someone who's moving to Mexico is age. The major
Ah,
difference
ah.
is age. Younger people are very attracted to Mexico, for example. Older people are too, but I think that most people that want to migrate here are older, and so
Older.
that we're already in that space. Whereas other expats may not experience the same thing
Ah,
depending on
ah.
the country you are in. So
Yes.
that was
That's
that was
that's
free, no charge, no charge. But I'm telling you, the expats in Mexico are
uh-huh.
different than the expats in Panama.
Wow.
Expats in Panama, for the most part, are extraordinarily conscious of finances, of quality of life, of
Ah,
quality of relationships. Those are the things that we seek, and those are the things that are important to us. So when we get together, that's what shines. That's why
right,
we're
right.
not talking about our accolades from the United States, because don't nobody care. Most of
No,
us are retired. Most of
no.
us are retired. We don't care. Matter of fact,
Right,
I don't want to talk about
right,
it. I don't want to talk
right.
about it. What are we doing now? So, okay. So now so that's a Chiriquí. That's a more local situation in Panama. And I don't know that we actually have a Democratic group in Panama City, but probably need to. Listen, if anybody want to take that on,
We
uh,
we reach out. We reach out, and we have a couple of people. Michelle Words. Is that a name you know?
no.
No. We have a couple of people, but they have an uphill battle. It's so much
Trying to
going
get
on in
things
Panama
together.
City.
Yes, and you just have to be you have to be patient when it comes
Right,
to building groups.
right,
It's is
right.
you need to be patient. You need to be willing to do this one person at a time.
Fine,
You have
right,
to be you have to have a tenacity, and that's it. And not everybody has that, so it's not always going to be where, it's just something that you have to build. So I
you
hope
have to
that,
build.
someone can get that mantle and carry it. And now might be the time. And this might be a time when people are encouraged, okay?
Right,
Because we're in a
right.
situation. So, some people want to know, am I eligible to vote in my home country while living abroad? We address that. But are there specific residency requirements that you must meet to vote abroad? So you don't have to be a show enough, like, registered resident in Panama to vote abroad.
What I'll tell you is this, and I can only speak for the process I went through for
Okay.
Florida, you know,
Uh-huh.
and they asked at one point, um, I'm trying to think of the exact wording, but allow me some freedom here to
Yeah,
paraphrase.
sure.
When are you coming back? Or do you plan to return to the United States? And then you check a box that says yes, no, or I'm not certain. Well, guess what? That I'm not certain box. I'm not. I mean, I'm not. And that's the box I checked. So
And it
yeah.
didn't change anything. It didn't change.
No,
You were still eligible.
yes, yes. And that's all, that and I'm not even sure why they asked that question, because the thing about it is I'm of the belief that if I did move back to Florida, I would probably vote and vote early, and I wouldn't request an absentee ballot.
Mhm. Hmm.
And that's something that you have to be aware of.
State by state.
In some states, they want you to request it every year. If you don't vote a certain year, they take you off the roll and that kind of thing. So your voter status is very important. Very
And
important.
you'll get a lot of that information from votefromabroad.org,
Yes,
state
yes,
by state.
yes.
Okay.
And from the Democrats abroad, and from the Cherokee progressives, because we talk
Okay.
about it a lot and exchange a lot of information there. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's up. And I think more and more people are, and like we talked earlier, and you said you're getting a lot more
Yes.
action. And
Yes.
that happens with our tours. Our tours, people buy tours. I mean, one day, I forget what it was happening in the United States, but it was ugly. And it might have been the debate. So
Oh.
I think I sold 6 tours in a day or
Oh,
something.
wow.
And it was like record breaking. So we actually had to make some provisions for the influx. And so this
Right.
is really why we wanted to, as me and you, get this out here.
So important. So important.
Registering from abroad, I think that we covered that with votefromabroad.org. That's a good way. That's a good source to
Right.
do that, right? Documentation needed to what documentation do I need to provide the voter registration? And is there a deadline? What do they ask you for? Do they ask you for a license or just those addresses that you mentioned?
Your
US
zip code, your
zip
US
code.
voting address zip code,
Mhm.
your current non-US address.
Yes.
And this is typical. It'll be different for different states. Your
Okay.
social security number
Uh-huh.
and your state ID if you have them.
Okay. So a driver's license or something like that.
Right.
Got
Right.
it.
And
Okay.
they ask, how they typically now ask for the last 4 digits of your social and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Good to
and I'm going down here and I'm looking at some of the questions that we knew we were going to have to or should address. The
Okay.
deadlines different for every state. They'll tell you as you look at election information.
Okay.
Okay. The voting methods, mail in, online. I say electronic. Do it as much, get an email. They'll send you an email with your ballot.
I
That's
trust
the way
that
to
more
go.
than I would trust the mail. Because
Right.
when you do it electronic, do you get a receipt back saying it was received?
You can go and I think I did once, but I go and check typically. I go
Okay.
and check and see, and
Trust but
depending on
verify, baby. Trust but
that's
verify.
right, that's right. Depending on the fax service that you use, they will tell you this fax was successfully delivered or that kind of thing.
Okay.
But I check. I always check. And like I said, for two reasons. One, because I want to know, and two, because I want them to know that I want
That
to
you want to know.
know.
I remember that. I remember that you want them to know that you want to know.
Right.
And that
Right.
and that's the truth because
Right.
they are tracking these things.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Right.
it makes this what questions people are asking. If you just want to go down the list and tell us this, let's roll with it. Go ahead, baby.
Well, okay. The other thing is support and resources. Um, when you go to votefromabroad.org,
Mm-hmm.
they have all sorts of resources. They even do Zoom meetings one-on-one with people to help them register. You can't ask for more than that. They will
Wow. That's
walk you through it.
yes.
Yeah. And what I typically do is someone asks me, I tell them to go to votefromabroad.org. And if after going there, they have any questions to come back to me. And you know, that works. Let me see what else. Legal and practical considerations. I know that there are people that feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't vote because I have a forwarding address and I have this and I have that. I have all of that too. I have a forwarding address for packages. I have a forwarding address for business mail and that kind of thing. I have a forwarding address for packages for air mail and you know, for air or sea or whatever.
Yes.
But the only address they're interested in is that address that you were registered in the States.
In the US.
Right.
Right.
And as far as your, you know, your current address, give them your current address. And if it's Panama, if it's Taichung City, Taiwan, wherever it is, they will email you about.
So do they what boxes do they give you? You know, the thing that I have is like, you know, foreign addresses are all different. It's
right.
not the regular fields that we have. It messes me up every time. So do they but you can figure
it's like a text, it's like a text box. It's okay. Like a text box. Gotcha. So you just, you know, start putting it. I tell you, I put in Volcancito Road, diagonal to Inglesa Casa.
Yes, yes.
Rosa
look. Down the road from the chicken coop.
Right, exactly. And the thing about it is that, you know, you have like whatever you have, because I can speak to Boquete, you know, Cherokee province, you know, Boquete is the town, that kind of thing. Volcancito is the road. I don't know what it might be in I'm not going to tell the story, but my husband and I just returned from a trip to Taiwan, and I was trying to order food to our address. You don't want to hear. It was ugly.
It was an experience, huh?
Yes. So what I'm saying is, I'm sure that there are people in Taiwan and Japan and everywhere else. My granddaughter, she's now going to school in Japan, and I told her, you're 18 now, you have to vote. Get on votefromabroad.org and make it happen, you know.
Figure it out.
Yes.
Well, the fact that they have a text box takes a lot of anxiety off of me, because when your mind is trying to fit a US address into when you're trying to fit an international address into US boxes,
it's very difficult.
That is when you know.
Very difficult.
Like, that's when you know you ain't at home.
Right. Okay? And surprisingly enough, the system recognizes that this is not a U.S. address, and that puts you into the queue to get that electronic.
Okay.
Ballot.
That's what's up. That's what's up. That's cool. Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to see here. Is there anything we did not?
We talked about deadlines, ballot request and submission. And how do people do an absentee ballot? Did we cover that?
Yeah, we did, because what happens when you go there, it's going to be different for this state, that state, whatever. And a lot of times I feel bad. I said it's like I'm not answering people's questions, but it can be so varied across the United States. You know, one thing that I do want to mention, you know, one thing that's going to be so important over the next few years is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, because we think we had a Voting Rights Act, but, you know, the Supreme Court gutted it.
Struck it down.
Yeah. So, you know, it's very important that we vote and we get the people in there who are going to make that happen, because right now we really don't have a Voting Rights Act.
Wow. And you know what? This is so important too, because, you know, I think that things in the US are so negative right now. Right now, quite frankly, I don't do politics on my Facebook group, but I am a Democrat, and I'm
Mhm.
very happy and excited about Kamala. And I have found that I'm more interested in watching the news because I have checked out. I have. And then sometime I'll be like, I need to check back in because people say some serious stuff,
Right,
I'll be like, I missed that. And it's trying to find that balance. We cannot
right,
check out. We have to stay engaged. And we have to be able to, like you said, bring our younger people on that
right,
don't, some of the things that are going on. Our younger people, I guess it's almost like for them imagining a rotary dial phone.
right, right,
They
right.
can't even really imagine that. A
Yes.
lot of these kids, if you put a rotary dial phone in front of them, they would say, "What is that?" But the people that can still remember the princess and the rotary
Yes.
dial
Yes.
phones, when we graduated to the princess push button and all of that, we know that there are things happening that could really adverse us and our future generations. I mean,
Right.
in a way that we haven't seen in our lifetime.
Right.
So, just making sure that our young people know what's happening and that they are registered to vote. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, whether they pull the plug, push the button, or whatever, is definitely dependent upon if they're registered. I hope that you
Yes.
will register and follow
Yes.
through, however you're going to vote, okay? But if
However
you're
you
not
want to vote.
registered, if you're not registered, then you will not have that option.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
you can't get to the end of the day and be like, whoa, this is really bad. I think I need to vote. It's past. We'll
and
have to
I think
wait to the next election. So I'm glad that
and
we
I
talked about
I
that.
think it's important too that they understand that
Mhm.
there are people out there. When you think about the fact that the popular vote in the last however many elections
Mhm.
have been, I'll say, in our favor. But that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that the Electoral College
Electoral,
reflects that.
electoral college.
So there are people who want to suppress the popular vote as much as they can. And you do that by having all these stipulations and rules and this and that and the other. And that brings me to another caution that I would say. When you're filling out that ballot, when you're signing the sheet that goes with that ballot, and you'll see that depending on your state, do it with care and do it correctly. Correctly means if they want, if you wrote down 2023 instead of 2024, in some states they'll use that to throw your ballot out.
Right.
you know so you have to be careful and following up to make sure your ballot has been counted, received, and counted. That's important. And if we do that enough, then they'll say, oh,
They
maybe
checking.
we can't.
They're checking. And like you said, what did you say? You said you want to know and you want them to know that you want to know.
Yeah, yeah,
It's important.
yeah.
It's
It's
it's it's
important.
very
It's
important.
important.
Um, did we go over the impact of voting abroad? And people want to know, does my vote count in the same way?
um I'm going to, which I try not to do most times, but I'm going to do it this time because of trusted source
Okay.
said to me that the number of votes from the Vote from Abroad coalition really helped to elect Obama.
Wow.
I made that kind of general because I can't give you the numbers. They gave me the numbers. But
Wow.
vote people voting from abroad. And we all know people who travel and experience different cultures and things, they're going to vote in a very different way than people who have never left the small town, you know? And so it's so important that we as a group let our voice be heard. It's so important. And yes, we have an impact. We will be represented at the Democratic National Convention.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yes,
I
yes,
did not know that. I have learned
yes.
so much from talking with you. Um and I guess we covered quite a bit of questions that people have, common questions that people have, and you've given us a lot of nuggets and advice from your personal experiences doing this over the, what was it, last 4 years you've been doing it?
Yes. Yes.
See, that's good. You get to see a lot of things. And so I would just say, like, in leaving this conversation, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you would like to touch on? Is there any advice that you would like to give, to people who are considering being abroad? Because I think what's important is to know these things before you make that move.
I think so too. And in answer to your question, I'll say people want to help and people want to give you information. Sometimes you need to strain that information through personal experience. What is your experience with this? And you also have to strain that advice and all through the fact that some people like different things. I mean, some people
Exactly.
and I one friend of mine who's been in Panama for 15 years
Wow.
told me, said she just gets so tickled when you have these people who've been here 3 days and they're gonna tell you everything you need to do, everything you gotta kind of be careful with that. It's not they want to be helpful and they want to tell you about their experience or experience that they heard from somewhere, this, that, and the other. But you need to be careful. You need to go to official and reliable sources. I do the best I can, but like I said, sometimes I feel like I'm not really answering people's questions because I say it depends, it depends, it depends, but it does on
But
your
there's a
state.
resource, but you're giving them
Right,
a resource.
right,
And
right.
at
A
the end of the
reliable
day,
resource.
Charlene, listen, at the end of the day, we're volunteers.
Right, right,
I have a company. Black Expats in
right,
Panama is an LLC and an SA. And there are certain parts of my business that are business. But a
right,
whole lot of what I do, I'm an absolute volunteer.
right,
And at the end of the day, I'm about to sit up here and compromise, anything by telling
right,
you some stuff that may or may not be correct. And like you say, when you're dealing with a whole country, with everybody, every state could have different rules. The
right,
best advice you could give them is to look it up.
right,
When you can send them to a place like votefromabroad.org, and more than likely they're going to get that information. You're not sending them away. You're asking them to do their due diligence and to
right,
make sure that is how they're going to make sure their vote really counts.
right,
Because they're
right.
going to get the information that is, I mean, from a pretty credible source,
Source
and it's
that's
all in one
specific
place.
for them. It's specific for them, and that is what's important. That's what's important because if you run into, and you will, the big I am, the big I am, I know it all, I got it all, I have it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that you said? Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. Trust
Yeah.
but verify. We have this conversation all the time when it comes to expats.
Right.
Because
Right.
nowadays, it's all about getting famous on YouTube, becoming an
Oh,
influencer or a big time vlogger.
right.
And
Right.
sometimes, you need to trust but verify.
Verify.
You
Yeah.
and you need to be able to discern that all information is not created equal.
Right.
My
Right.
journey My journey here is not your journey here.
Your
My
journey.
journey
Right.
for residency is not your journey for residency.
Right.
You got my residency because I was married to a Panamanian. That is different than
Different.
coming in as a friendly nation. So you can't speak from a friendly nation visa, okay, perspective to other people who are coming in a different
Right.
ways. So always
Right.
recognize that the experience may actually be unique. And when
Yes.
people express, this is my experience, it may not be your experience, but when somebody is talking about their experience as if it is the whole, verify.
Be careful. Be careful. Right. Right. And
Especially with your vote.
oh, oh,
Especially with your vote.
especially is so important. So
Mhm.
important. So, like I said, I found that Democrats abroad, vote from abroad, lots of information, lots of good information, and lots of activity too, depending on the level of activity that you want to be involved in, just like the Cherokee Progressives, every time I think about that group, I have to smile because we have so much fun.
It's awesome.
you know,
You're bonding. You're
yes,
bonding
yes, yes,
over trying to make sure that you're staying engaged and you're taking
yes,
care of everybody else that's still back in your home country.
right, right,
It's special
right,
because some of the things that are happening that are really encouraging this movement to people that are in the, as far as voting and the, just the concern that's happening. When you're abroad, you can get a little numb to that. And so I think being aware of it
yes,
and finding it
yes,
important is awesome.
yes.
So listen, I so appreciate your being on the show today. It's very important. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be with us because the information that you shared will be a blessing to many.
And to you because it is important and it's more important now, and we've all heard the phrase our country is at an inflection point. It is
It really
and
is.
yeah,
It really
and
is.
yep, and
And
each of us has to take a responsibility to
yeah.
move it in the direction that we think it should go.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Which way do we want to go? Because and then for those who are in Panama or other countries, and like I said, you cannot be totally engaged because a lot of things that are happening in the United States right now is energy. It's like when
right,
you drop down
right.
there, you can feel
Feel it,
something is
feel it.
happening. It's a
Yes,
shift,
yes,
baby. You can
yes.
feel it. And but I say to people who are living abroad at this time, don't get it twisted.
Right,
You may need
right.
to go back there. So make
That's right.
sure if you
That's
need to go back there, that you going back to a place that you
right,
want to go back to.
right.
That you're not totally afraid to go
To
back.
go back to. Right.
Don't look. Don't what they say. Don't forget where you came from.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And another thing and talk to your grandchildren. It just occurred to me. It was so funny because when I think of my grandchildren, I think of these little cherubs, but now they're 18, they're 20.
Look, they eligible to vote.
That's right. Talk to them. Yeah. Yeah.
Experiences like some of the things that are happening. I mean, I think that we are even at the age where you know it may not be as bad for some of us, some of the things that we've remembered and experienced, but like pre-civil rights movement and
Right.
everything like that,
Right.
that wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago. And I think that like you bringing your husband dropping you off at first, and then him out there with the signs afterwards. Once you get connected to the personal experience of somebody
Right.
love, and trust, things look very different.
Different.
Tell those stories.
Right.
Especially the older people. We gonna need the nanas and the great nanas to come through.
Right.
Bring all them kids at when you together at a holiday and tell them. Some of it is painful. but
Well,
tell
and
them the things
I,
that you experienced personally.
I had to tell my granddaughters, I had granddaughters, do you know, and when I got married when I was 18 years old, I couldn't have a credit card.
Wow.
Men could have a credit card,
Right.
but a wife could not have a credit card.
Yep.
And that's the kind of
You
thing that
couldn't have
makes
a
them
bank. There was a time when you couldn't have a bank account.
right. Exactly. Exactly.
They can't
So the
even
thing,
imagine that. That's a rotary dial phone for them.
right, right, right.
Yeah.
And when they start hearing some of that stuff and thinking about let's make America great again.
Like, okay, so that was great. All right, sign me up, baby. Look, make it plain. Make it
Right.
plain.
Make
That's
it
what we have
plain.
to do. We have
Right.
to make it plain. And
Right.
especially the older folks, sometimes the older folks, I feel like they just come from a place, with kids and younger people seen and not heard. It's better not to talk about death.
Right.
It's better not to
Right.
talk about this.
Right.
We just so secretive. And we dying without passing on knowledge that is going to help our
Right.
kids recognize the past when it meets us in our face
In the
in
right.
today, in the present.
Yes.
You don't
Yeah.
know the past. You don't know it's coming back. You don't know that it's repeating
Right.
itself.
Right.
If they can take out African American history out of the books and all of these things, eventually it just takes like one or two generations. And it's gonna be
Preach, sister, preach.
what?
It's true.
Who's
It's
gonna tell
true.
the story? Who is
Yes.
gonna tell the story? And nobody, we are already, it is so watered down already
Right.
that
Right.
our kids are not aware. It's all kumbaya,
Right.
kumbaya. And that's good. There should be love. We should be bringing love. We should be spreading love. I get that. But let's keep it real.
Right.
Let's recognize, teaching them the dog whistles, the things that completely miss them because
Right.
it's from a rotary dial age.
And they don't really understand it. They don't really understand it. They really
They
don't.
don't
Yeah.
understand it
Yeah.
at all. They don't, it's
Yeah.
not even that they don't understand it. They just can't even recognize it. They
Right.
just can't even see it. However, it's up to us to let them know the real. So
Right.
as always, I have such good time doing this. I'm over time. But I got thank God they love me on the radio station because I'll be in trouble. But
Okay.
it was so nice. I'm going to put these organizations down at the bottom. Like I said, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with us. And I bid you a good rest of the day, my love.
Okay. Same to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. There you have it. There you have it, y'all. Yes, Miss Charlene brought it, and I just really want to thank her. I'm just, meeting her. I am on the Facebook group, Democrats Abroad, Panama. And I know that you don't see if you're on my group, we don't do politics. Okay. What we're not going to do is get up on Black expats in Panama and start acting a fool. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you're in places where you're all kind of like-minded for the most part, that's one thing. But as far as political postings and things like that, you can do that on your personal page. You do not have to share that with, 8,000 plus people on the Black Expats in Panama page. And the page is just not open for foolishness. Okay, that's not what no, we're not going to do that. So anyway, I hope that was helpful to you. I will plug in those groups that she mentioned, and votefromabroad.org sound like the winner, y'all. I wish I had known about that earlier. So for those of you who are thinking about the expat experience, this is something else that you can take care or be abreast of prior to you making that move. It's always stuff that we need to know, and getting it from credible sources is very, very, very important. So I'm going to let you guys go. It's been amazing hanging out with you for this little bit of time. Follow us everywhere at Black Expats in Panama. Blow up our YouTube channel. Everybody loves the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support. I get like amazing messages, and people are really getting their passports. We are definitely doing a serious passport push. At the end of the day, when it comes to the international alternatives to the United States, you don't have one. If you don't have a passport, you cannot leave the United States of America without a passport. So as we start to get closer to the holiday season, get the passports for your kids, your grandkids. Check your passport. Make sure it's not time to put in for renewal. What you don't want to happen is like with this project 2025, and they're saying that, we're going to kill, so many tens of thousands of federal government jobs, like on the spot, Johnny on the spot, day one, we finna get rid of them. That would definitely affect the processing of your passport. Do not wait. Just don't wait. Let's become a norm for all of us to have a passport. Okay. And then when it comes to the country that you want to live in, the country that you want your children and your grandchildren and your great grandchildren to know about, consider that right now. Voting is essential. It really is. Unity is essential. We just need to do a new thing. And I think that we have been through enough over the last several years that, maybe we can take this stuff for serious now, and we can really get together and do some things. I'm seeing a lot of groups unifying around Kamala, and I like that. She's our nominee, whether you like it or not, so you got some decisions to make, period, because it is what it is. You understand? Okay, so I said what I said. I'm gonna let y'all go. I ain't gonna fool with you. I'm going to leave you with a song that was really different. Her song, one of her favorite songs from back in the day, was John Lennon Imagine. And I'm going to leave you with that on the radio part of this show. And in the meantime, I want to thank my main man, Daryl Spears, for producing my radio show, my podcast, Black Expat Journey. Always want to give a shout out to Devin and Riley for creating blacksitradio.com and giving us an opportunity to put our voices out in the world forever and ever and ever. That's important. That's power. My grandchildren, my great-grandchildren great-great-grandchildren are going to hear this one day. And that just warms my heart, because we need to be able to pass on legacy and information. So anyway, whole lot going on. Our 2025 tours are uploaded. You can get them at the same link where you got 2024. Just for you, we have those tours listed at 2024 prices until further notice, because we want you to be able to take advantage of the opportunity to see what your options abroad are. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna roll out. Oh my goodness, y'all know what time it is. I love you. I love you. I love you. And there's just nothing that you can do about it. This is your girl, Charlotte Van Horn, Black Expats in Panama, signing off right here on blacksitradio.com. Ciao. Peace, baby. That's honey.